Jaina Agama Gyan. Anga Agamas. Acharanga Agama.
इमेण चेव जुज्जाहि किं ते जुज्झेण वज्झो जुद्धारिहं खलु दुर्लभं जहेत्त कुशलेहिं परिण्णाविवेगे भासिये.
Acharanga Sutra. Acharanga Agama Sastra, Book 2, Third Lecture. Walking. Area. The movement. Sudharma, one of the 11 chief disciples, Ganadhara of Mahavira, compiled Acharanga Sutra Book 1. Some are in the opinion of Acharanga Sutra Book 2 is scripted by a Sthavar. First lesson. When the rainy season has come and it is raining, many living beings are originated and many seeds just spring up. The roads between different places contain many living beings. Seeds. The footpaths are not used, the roads are not recognizable. Knowing this state of things, one should not wander from village to village, but remain during the rainy season in one place. Exploration of place suitable for monsoon stay. Sutra 127. As it starts raining with the onset of monsoon season, numerous beings are generated, seeds sprout, and the land turns green with grass and other vegetation. On the road too, numerous beings are born and seeds sprout, and many places are covered with cobwebs. Paths are blocked due to rain. It becomes difficult to walk and it is hard even to find a path. In such conditions, an ascetic should not move from one village to another. Instead, he should spend the monsoon season staying at one village. When a monk or a nun knows that in a village or scot-free town there is no large place for religious practices nor for study, that there cannot easily be obtained a stool, bench, bed, or couch, nor pure acceptable alms, that there have come or will come many Shramanas and Brahmanas, guests, paupers, and beggars, that the means of existence are extremely small, that it is not fit for a wise man to enter or leave it. In such a village, scot-free town, they should not remain during the cold season. Sutra 128. A bhikshu or bhikshuni should find about the village, city or capital where he wants to spend a monsoon stay. If that village or city or capital does not have large area for studies in solitude, fault-free land for disposing excreta, easy availability of stool, plank, place of study, stay and bed, availability of pure, fault-free and acceptable food. He should also find whether already there are numerous Ramanas, Brahmins, guests, destitute and beggars. Many more have come and many are likely to come, and because of this the roads are crowded. It is difficult for ascetics to come out or return to their place of stay for alms collection and other necessary work, and even studies and essential activities cannot be performed without disturbance. If it is so, the bhikshu or bhikshuni should not spend monsoon stay in such village, city or capital. According to the ancient tradition, an year is divided into 3 quarters or seasons: winter, summer and monsoon. The monsoon season starts after Ashada Purnima, the full moon night or the last day of the month of Ashada, on the first day of the dark half of the month of Shravana, and ends on Kartika Purnima. When the monsoon season starts, ascetics should stop wandering from one village to another. According to Acharya Sri Atmaramji, if it rains before Ashada Purnima and the area turns green, ascetics should at once commence their monsoon stay. This is mainly with the view of avoiding harm to beings. There are also chances of harm to one's own body due to rain and slime. That is the reason for staying at one place during monsoon season. When a monk, a nun, knows that in a village or scot-free town there is a large place of religious practices or for study, that there can easily be obtained a stool, bench, bed or couch or pure acceptable alms, that there have not come nor will come Sramanas and Brahmanas, guests, paupers and beggars, that the means of existence are not small, they may remain in such a place during the rainy season. Sutra 129. A bhikshu or bhikshuni should find if that village or city or capital has large area for studies in solitude, fault-free land for disposing excreta, easy availability of stool, plank, place of stay and bed, and even pure, fault-free and acceptable food available, whether there are not many Sramanas, Brahmins, guests, destitute and beggars, neither more have come nor more to come, and because of this the roads are not crowded. It is not difficult for ascetics to come out of or return to their place of stay for alms, collection and other necessary work, and even studies and essential activities can be performed without disturbance. If it is so, the bhikshu or bhikshuni should spend monsoon stay in such village, city or capital. Now they should know this. After the 4 months of the rainy season are over and 5 or 10 days of the winter have passed, they should not wander from village to village if the road contains many living beings and if many Shramans and Brahmins do not yet travel. Sutra 130. The bhikshu or bhikshuni should also know that he should leave the place when the 4-month period of the monsoon season comes to an end. But if it rains again in the Kartik month and there are many beings, eggs, vegetation on the path and other Sramanas, Brahmins and Parivrajaks are also not using that path, then he or she is allowed to extend the stay for 5 to or 10 days. Moving on such marshy path should be avoided. But if after the same time the road contains few living beings and many Sramanas and Brahmins travel, they may circumspectly wander from village to village. Sutra 131. When the bhikshu or bhikshuni finds that after the end of the monsoon season, a fortnight of the winter season has also passed, the path is now free of vegetation, eggs, and suitable for movement, and numerous Buddhist and other mendicants have also started moving around, he can resume his careful itinerant way. Ascetics stay at one place during the 4 months of monsoon season. At the end of the 4 months period on the Kartik Purnima, he should leave the place on the first day of the dark fortnight of the month of Margashira. That is the normal rule. However, if it rains even in the Kartik month and the roads are not passable due to slime, he may extend his stay for a maximum period of 5 to 10 days. According to the commentator Churni and Acharya Sri Atmaramji, he may extend his stay there up to a fortnight. A monk or a nun wandering from village to village should look forward for 4 cubits, and seeing animals they should move on by walking on his toes or heels or the sides of his feet. If there be some bypath, they should choose it and not go straight on it. Then they may circumspectly wander from village to village. Precautious during movement. Sutra 132. While moving from one village to another, a bhikshu or bhikshuni should walk keeping out 6 feet of ground in his vision. If he sees mobile beings on the ground, he should lift his toes and walk on heels. If there are beings on both sides, he should walk on sides of his feet and or bringing both feet nearer. This method is to be used in absence of an alternative path. However, if there is an alternative path free of beings, he should always take that path with due care and not the path that is straight but infested with beings. Thus he should move about from one village to another with due care. A monk or a nun wandering from village to village, on whose way there are living beings, seeds, grass, water, or mud, should not go straight if there be an unobstructed byway. Then they may circumspectly wander from village to village. Sutra 133. While moving from one village to another, a bhikshu or bhikshuni should find if there are mobile beings, scattered seeds, vegetation, water and sand yet to be uncontaminated on the path. If it is so and an alternative path free of beings is available, he should always take that alternative path with due care and not the path that is straight but infested with beings. However, if no alternative path is available, he may take the available one with due care. A monk or a nun on the pilgrimage whose road lies through places belonging to borderers, robbers, mlekas, non-Aryan people, half-civilized people, unconverted people, people who rise or eat at an improper time, should, if there be some other place for walking about or friendly distance, not choose the former road for their voyage. Bandits and other problems. Sutra 134. An itinerant bhikshu or bhikshuni should find if on his way there are domains of bandits, rustics, or uncivilized people who are averse to learning, difficult to persuade to abandon uncivilized ways by preaching religion, who remain awake during odd hours and eat at odd hours. If it is so, he should not even think of taking that path if another is available or there are areas where civilized people live. The Omniscient has said that going there is the cause of bondage of karmas. This is because when those ignorant, uncivilized people see ascetics, they will utter harsh words. He is a thief, he is a spy, he comes from a hostile village. They will also tie him with ropes and torture him. It is also possible that they will tear, break, destroy, snatch or throw away his belongings including dress, pots, blanket and ascetic broom. Therefore, for ascetics, Tirthankaras and other sages have said that the ascetic should not think of moving around in areas where bandits and uncivilized people live. In other words, they should avoid such areas during their wanderings. The Kavalian says this is the reason the ignorant populace might beat the mendicant in the opinion that he is a thief or a spy, or that he comes from yonder hostile village, or they might take away, cut off, steal or rob his robe, alms bowl, mantle or broom. Hence it has been said to the mendicant that one whose road lies through places belonging to, then he may circumspectly wander from village to village. A monk or a nun on the pilgrimage whose road lies through a country where there is no king or many kings, or an unanointed king, or two governments, or no government, or a weak government, should, if there be some other place for walking about or friendly districts, not choose the former road for their voyage. The Kavalian says this is the reason the ignorant populace might bully or beat the mendicant. Sutra 135. The itinerant bhikshu or bhikshuni should find if one on his way there is an anarchy or a disturbed republic, or a state ruled by a minor prince, or a state ruled by two kings, or a kingdom with a dispute between ruler and the ruled. If it is so, he should not even think of taking that path if other suitable areas are available. The Omniscient has said that going there is the cause of bondage of karma. When those ignorant, uncivilized people see ascetic, they will utter harsh words. He is a thief. They should avoid such areas during their wandering. A monk or a nun on the pilgrimage whose road lies through a forest which they are not certain of crossing in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days should, if there be some other place for walking about or friendly districts, not choose the former road for their voyage. Prudence of movement. Procedure of movement. While wandering from one village to another or going to seek alms, an ascetic should watch an area equal to the dimensions of his body and walk carefully and slowly. If there is slime, stones, vegetation, or mobile beings on the path, and there is no alternate path, the ascetic should walk very slowly, step by step, and taking extra care to avoid harming beings. Avoid dangerous paths. An ascetic should avoid a dangerous path while going from one village to another, such as a long, dangerous, and desolate path that could take days to cross, where there are rivers, canals, or other water bodies or vegetation on the way, which are frequented by thieves, bandits, and dacoits. The Kaivalyan says, this is the reason. During the rain, living beings, mildew, seeds, grass, water, mud, hence it has been said to the mendicant that one whose road lies through such a forest, then he may circumspectly wander from village to village. Desolate areas on the way. Sutra 136. An itinerant bhikshu or bhikshuni should find if on his way there is a difficult desolate terrain ahead which can be crossed only in 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 days, and that too with great hardship. If it is so, he should not take the path if other path is available. The Omniscient has said that going there is the cause of bondage of karmas. If it rains, two sense beings may be created. Ascetic discipline may be violated due to presence of fungus and moss, seeds, vegetation, contaminated water, and sand on the path. Therefore, Tirthankaras have said that ascetics should not think of taking such desolate path when an alternative path is available. They should follow the safe alternate path. Procedure of movement, wandering. The general procedure of wandering is that an ascetic should move out only during the daytime, keeping about 6 feet of ground in his vision. As far as possible, he should take to a clean and level path free of beings, slime, vegetation, water pits. He should also take care to avoid paths with following 5 types of obstacles: path crowded with mobile beings, path having beings, seeds, vegetation, water pits on the way, path that passes through domains of bandits, rustics, imbeciles, and religious people, path that passes through anarchists or hostile states, desolate and difficult terrain that takes long time to pass through. If first 2 types of obsolete are seen all of a sudden and unknowingly, then he should walk carefully to cross over. The last 3 should be avoided by taking to an alternative and safe path. The commentator Vritti has enumerated 4 types of care, precaution: Dravya Yatna or physical care, to walk avoiding creatures and animals; Kshetra Yatna or area care, to walk keeping in view 6 feet area ahead; Kalayatna or time care, to move about during specific time or period, such as not wandering during monsoon; Bhavayatna or mental care, to move cautiously with a disciplined spiritual attitude. Jindas Mahatar, the commentator Churni, has also interpreted Jugamaye as body length. The commentator Vritti has given an example of troubles faced while wandering through a disturbed area. The prince of Shravasti was once wandering alone through such a desolate area. The police of the state took him to be a spy and arrested. Rustics tied him and tortured him by stinging with darba grass having sharp and pointed tip. Technical term: Udattu, lifting toes; Shahatu, to walk on heel, bringing feet together; Vitricham Hadkatu, to walk with slanted legs or to take alternative path if available. Dhumapana Vanijani, places of people difficult to be made civilized by preaching religion. Akalapadi Bohini, places of people who are awake at odd hours. Aryayani, place without a king. Yuvarayani, place with a minor ruler. An uncrowded ruler is called a Yuvaraj. Virajani, a kingdom conquered by a hostile king. Viruddharajani, a state where the king is against religion and ascetics. Viham, a desolate terrain which takes many days to cross. A monk or a nun on the pilgrimage on whose way there is some watercourse which must be crossed by a boat should not ascend such a boat which flies up or down or across, neither for 1 yojanas or half a yojana's distance, neither for a shorter nor a longer voyage, if they know that the householder will buy or purloin the boat, or doing the work necessary to put the boat in order, pull it ashore out of the water, or push it from the shore into the water, or bail it if it is filled, or cause a sinking boat to float. Procedure of riding a boat. Sutra 137. If an itinerant bhikshu or bhikshuni comes across a water body that could be crossed in a boat, he should use a boat, but before that he should find if a householder buys or borrows the boat or gets in exchange of his own boat or draws a boat from land into water or from water to land or empties a water-filled boat or pulls out a boat from marsh, prepares it specifically for the ascetic and requests the ascetic to board. If it is so, the ascetic should not use once or many times of a short or a long period such a boat that plies 1 yojana or half yojana upstream, downstream or across for crossing a water body. A monk or a nun, knowing that boat will cross the river, should, after having received the owner's permission, step apart, examine their outfit, put aside their provender, wipe their body from head to heels, reject the householder's foot, and putting 1 foot in the water and the other in the air, they should circumspectly enter the boat. Sutra 138. If it is necessary to board a boat, he should be inclined to use a boat going across. He should first seek permission from the householder and retire to a lonely place, inspect his equipment and pack them together. After this, he should inspect his own body from head to toe and take a vow of limited fasting. Then he should carefully board the boat, keeping 1 foot in water and the other on land. A monk or a nun in entering the boat should not choose for that purpose the stern or the prow or the middle of the boat, nor should they look at it holding up their arms, pointing at it with their finger, bowing up and down. Sutra 139. While boarding a boat, a bhikshu or a bhikshuni should choose neither the stern nor the prow or the middle of the boat. He should refrain from looking down at the water by holding the sides of the boat or raising, lowering or pointing with finger. If on board, the boatman should say to the monk, "O long-lived Shramana, pull the boat forward or backward, or push it or draw it with the rope towards you, or let us do it together." He should not comply with his request, but look on silently. Sutra 140. If the boatman tells to an ascetic riding the boat, long lived Shraman, please pull the boat upward or downward, or hold the rope and tie the boat fast, or draw the rope tight, the ascetic should not comply with this request from the boatman and silently ignore it. If on board, the other should say to him, O long lived Shramana, you cannot pull the boat forward or backward, or push it, or draw it with a rope towards you. Give us the rope, we will ourselves pull the boat forward or backward. He should not comply with his request, but look on silently. Sutra 141. If the boatman tells to an ascetic riding the boat, long lived Shraman, if you cannot pull the boat upwards or downwards, or hold the rope and tie the boat fast, or draw the rope tight, please hand over the rope lying on the boat to me. I will pull the boat upwards or downwards and tie it fast with rope on my own. The ascetic should not comply even with this request from the boatman and silently ignore it. If on the board, the other should say to him, O long lived Shraman, if you can pull the boat by the oar, the rudder, the pole, the other nautical instruments, he should not comply with his request, but look on silently. Sutra 142. If the boatman tells an ascetic riding the boat, O long lived Shraman, please push the boat forward with an oar, rudder, bamboo, pole, or scull, the ascetic should not comply with this request from the boatman and silently ignore it. If on board, the other should say to him, O long lived Shramana, please load out the water with your hand or pitcher or vessel or alms bowl or bucket, he should not comply with his request, but look on silently. Sutra 143. If the boatsman tells an ascetic riding the boat, long lived Shramana, please bail out the water filled in the boat with your hand, feet, or bowl, or a pot, the ascetic should not comply with this request from the boatman and silently ignore it. If on the boat, the other should say to him, O long lived Shramana, please stop the boat's leak with your hand, foot, arm, thigh, belly, head, body, the bucket or the cloth, or with mud, kusha grass or lotus leaves, he should not comply with his request, but look on silently. Sutra 144. If the boatman tells to an ascetic riding the boat, long lived Shraman, please block or plug the hole with your hand, foot, arm, thigh, belly, head or body, or with bailing implements, cloth, clay, kusha grass, or kuruvind grass, the ascetic should not comply with this request from the boatman and silently ignore it. If a monk or a nun see that water enters through a leak in the boat and the boat becomes dirty all over, they should not approach the boatman and say, O long lived householder, water enters through a leak into the boat, and if it becomes dirty all over, one should not think or so speak to, but undisturbed, the mind not directed outwardly, one should collect oneself for contemplation. Then one may circumspectly complete one's journey by the boat on the water. This is the whole duty. Thus I say. Sutra 145. If a bhikshu or a bhikshuni riding a boat happens to see water rushing in from a hole in the boat, he should not approach the boatman and say, Long lived householder, water is leaking in from the hole in your boat, or the boat is getting filled with water. He should not divert his mind or speech thus, but remain still. He should have no attachment for his body and equipment. He should not divert his energy towards activities outside his code of discipline. He should focus his attention to oneness with soul, remain composed in his discipline of right knowledge, perception, conduct, and abandon his fondness for body and equipment. After crossing the water body about this way, he should resume his wandering following the procedure laid down by Tirthankara. So I say, said Sthaver.
यदक्षरपदभ्रष्टं मात्राहीनं च यद्भवेत् तत्सर्वं क्षम्यतां देव महावीर नमोऽस्तु ते।
जैन आगमा ज्ञान। अंग आगमास, अचरंग आगमा।
इमेण चैव जुज्जाहि किं ते जुज्झेण वज्झो जुद्धारिहं खलु दुर्लभं जहेत्त कुशलेहिं परिन्नाविवेगे भासिये।
अचरंग सूत्र, अचरंग आगम शास्त्र, बुक 2, third lecture, walking, area, the movement. Sudharma, one of the 11 chief disciples, Ganadhara of Mahavira, compiled Acharanga Sutra book 1. Some are in the opinion of Acharanga Sutra book 2 is scripted by a Sthavar. Second lesson. If on board, the boatman should say to the mendicant, "O long-lived Shraman, please take this umbrella, pot, hold these various dangerous instruments. Let this boy or girl drink. He should not comply with his request, but look on silently." In face of afflictions, Sutra 146, if householders or others in a boat tell to the ascetic, "Long-lived Shraman, please hold our umbrella, bowl, pot, stick, staff, mattress, pipe, dress, curtain, piece of leather bag or chisel, and take proper care, or feed water to these children," the ascetic should not comply with this request and silently ignore it. If on board, the boatman should say to another of the crew, "O long-lived one, this Shraman is only a heavy load for the boat. Take hold of him with your arms and throw him into the water." Hearing and perceiving such talk, he should, if he wears clothes, quickly take them off or fasten them or put them in a bundle on his head. Sutra 147. At this display of apathy by the ascetic, if the person tells his fellow passengers, "Long-lived householder, this Shraman is a burden on the boat just like pots and utensils," he neither listens nor does any work. Therefore, hold him by his arms and throw him out of the boat into the water. Hearing these words, if the ascetic is clad, he should spread his clothes and wrap them well around his body. He should also wrap some clothes around his head. Now he may think, these ruffians, accustomed to violent acts, might take hold of me and throw me from the boat into the water. He should first say to them, "O long-lived householders, don't take hold of me with your arms and throw me into the water. I myself shall leap from the boat into the water." If after these words the other by force and violence takes hold of him with his arms and throws him into the water, he should be neither glad nor sorry, neither in high nor low spirit, nor should he offer violent resistance to those ruffians, but undisturbed, his mind not directed to untoward things, he circumspectly swim in the water. A monk or a nun swimming in the water should not touch another person's or their own hand, foot, or body with their own hand, foot, or body, but without touching it, if they should circumspectly swim in the water. Sutra 148. And the ascetic should think that these extremely cruel and ignorant people are certainly going to hold him by his arms and throw in the water. Therefore, even before they proceed, he should tell them, "Long-lived householder, please do not forcibly throw me out of the boat. I will leave the boat and enter the water on my own." Even when the ascetic has said this, if someone suddenly holds him by arms and throws him into the water, the ascetic should neither be glad nor sorry. He should neither be dejected nor excited, and he should not even prepare to retaliate physically. He should also not think of taking a revenge. Instead, he should become free of the pleasure or sorrow of life and death, divert his attention from body and other outer things, focus his attention to oneness with soul, and enter the water with due care. A monk or a nun swimming in the water should not dive up or down, lest water should enter into their ears, eyes, nose, or mouth, but they should circumspectly swim in the water. Sutra 149. While submerging in water, the bhikshu or bhikshuni should not touch one of his hands with another, one of his legs with another, or any part of his body with another. Thus, without bringing different parts of his body in contact with each other, he should drift away in the water with due care. If a monk or a nun swimming in the water should be overcome by weakness, they should throw off their implements, either all or a part of them, and not be attached to them. Now they should know this: if they are able to get out of the water and reach the bank, they should circumspectly remain on the bank with a wet or moist body. Sutra 150. While drifting in the water, the ascetic should not even try to dive down or come up. He should also not worry that water is entering his ears, eyes, nose, or mouth. He should continue to drift in the water with equanimity and due care. A monk or a nun should not wipe or rub or brush or stroke or dry or warm or heat their body. But when they perceive that the water on their body has dried up and the moisture is gone, they may wipe or rub their body in that state. Then they may circumspectly wander from village to village. Sutra 151. While drifting in the water, if the bhikshu or bhikshuni experiences weakness, he should abandon his burden. He should have no fondness or attachment for his body and equipment. A monk or a nun on the pilgrimage should not wander from village to village, conversing with householders. They may circumspectly wander from village to village. Sutra 152. If he realizes that he will be able to cross the water body even with his belongings, once he reaches the bank, he should remain standing on the river bank as long as water drips and his body is wet. Procedure of boarding a boat. While wandering from one village to another, if an ascetic comes across a large river and there is no other way to cross the river but in a boat, he should first of all seek permission from the owner of the boat. After that, he should tie his possessions on his shoulders and back. Then he should carefully go aboard the boat, putting one foot in water and the other on land. He should compose himself and sit in the boat without any fear or attachment. During the boat ride, if he has to abandon the boat for some reason or some disaster strikes, the ascetic should tie his possessions to his body and enter the water, disassociating his mind from his body and freeing himself of any thoughts of life and death. When he reaches the bank, he should stand there in Kayosarga to dry his body and clothes. Finally, he should resume his solitary wandering silently on dry and faultless land. If a monk or a nun on the pilgrimage come across a shallow water, they should first wipe their body from head to heels. Then, putting one foot in the water and the other in the air, they should wade through the shallow water in a straight line. Sutra 153. The ascetic should not touch, wipe, rub, massage, or knead his body with his hand once or repeatedly while it is still dripping or wet. He should not even try to dry his body and burden in sun. When he finds that his body is absolutely dry, there is not even a drop or trace of water on it, only then he may touch, wipe, rub, massage, or knead his body with his hands and even warm his body in sun. After that he may resume his itinerant way, taking due care. In the preceding 8 aphorisms, procedures of overcoming afflictions while riding a boat have been detailed. For example, if the boatman or others ask the ascetic to go against the ascetic code, and on ignoring they abuse him and plan to throw him out of the boat, then the ascetic should inform them about ascetic conduct. If they do not accept this, he should ignore their request and sit silently. As soon as he hears the talk about throwing him into the water, he should wrap his clothes around his body. If they forcibly throw him into water, he should neither be glad of soon getting rid of the afflictions by entering water, nor sorry for drowning. He should not even have ill feelings for the offenders or desire to retaliate physically or take revenge. Instead, he should enter the water with equanimity. In this context, Acharya Sri Atmaramji clarifies that there is no mention of any idiopathic pratikraman, procedure of atonement after a movement on a path, in the Agam. Therefore, there is no fault or sin involved in crossing a river according to the procedure laid down in Agam. But if the procedure has not been followed strictly and there is even a trace of stupor, pain, or anger in mind, speech, and body, then it becomes necessary to atone for it. Acharya Sri Atmaramji further states that it is prohibited to cross a river more than once in a month. It is allowed only once a month. There is also a rule that if a female ascetic falls into a river, a male ascetic can hold her and help coming out. There is also a mention that at one time 2 beings can attain the status of Siddha from a sea and 3 from a river. It is evident from these references that violence and ahimsa are related to feelings. The ascetic who follows the ascetic conduct with prudence, care, and code laid down in Agam avoids faults or sin. However, if there is some laxity or stupor in following the procedure, he should do the necessary atonement. If a monk or a nun on the pilgrimage come across a shallow water, they should wade through it in a straight line, without being touched by the touching hand, foot, or body with their own hand, foot, or body. Talking while walking. The Sutra 154. An itinerant bhikshu or bhikshuni should not talk with householders while walking. He should properly follow the code of a movement while going from one village to another. A monk or a nun wading through shallow water in a straight line should not plunge in deeper water for the sake of pleasure or the heat, but they should circumspectly wade through the shallow water in a straight line. Now they should know this. If one is able to get out of the water and reach the bank, one should circumspectly remain on the bank with a wet or a moist body. Procedure of crossing knee-deep water. Sutra 155. When itinerant bhikshu or bhikshuni comes to a knee-deep water body, in order to cross it, he or she should first inspect and clean his or her body from head to toe. After that, he or she should put one foot in water and other on land and cross the shallow water body, following the procedure laid down by Tirthankaras. A monk or a nun should not wipe or rub. Sutra 156. While following this procedure of crossing, he or she should not touch one of his or her hands with the other, one of his or her legs with the other, and different parts of his or her body with each other. This way he or she should cross the shallow water body carefully, following the procedure laid down by Tirthankaras. A monk or a nun on the pilgrimage with their feet soiled with mud should not, in order that the grass might take off the mud from the feet, walk out of the way and destroy the grass by cutting, trampling, and tearing it. As this would be sinful, they should not do so. But they should first inspect a path containing little grass, then they may circumspectly wander from village to village. Sutra 157. While following this procedure of crossing, he or she should not enter deep or large water body for physical pleasure or pacifying heat. If he or she feels that he or she cannot cross carrying his or her equipment, he should or she should abandon them. After that, he or she should cross the shallow water body, carefully following the procedure laid down by Tirthankaras. If a monk or a nun on the pilgrimage come upon walls or ditches or ramparts or gates or bowls or holes to fit them, or moats or caves, they should, in case there be a byway, choose it and not go on straight. In the Sutra 158, if he is confident that he can cross even carrying his equipment, he may do so. Once he reaches the bank, he should remain standing on the river bank as long as water drips and his body is wet. The Kavalan says this is the reason. Walking there, the mendicant might stumble or fall down. When he stumbles or falls down, he might get hold of trees, shrubs, plants, creepers, grass, copse, wood, or sprouts to extricate himself. He should ask travelers who meet him to lend a hand. Then he may circumspectly lean upon it and extricate himself. So he may circumspectly wander from village to village. Sutra 159. The ascetic should not touch his body once or repeatedly while it is still wet. He should not even try to dry his body in sun. When he finds that his body is absolutely dry, there is not even a drop or trace of water on it, only then he may touch his body with his hand. After that he may resume his itinerant way, taking due care. The water body that can be crossed walking is called Janga Santariman. The water body that is navel deep, chin deep, or head deep should be crossed in a boat following the procedure given in preceding aphorisms. According to the commentator Ritti, Janga Santharanya means knee-deep water, because only then it can be crossed, keeping one foot in water and the other on land. If the ascetic finds it difficult to cross carrying his equipment, he should abandon the same. In brief, 6 procedures have been detailed in these aphorisms. First, he should clean his body and then walk carefully, putting one foot in water and the other on land. While doing so, he should avoid touching parts of his body. He should not enter deeper water for pleasure or pacifying heat. Only if it is possible to cross with the load of equipment, he may do so, otherwise not. As long as there is even a trace of water on his body, he should remain standing on the bank. When the body is absolutely dry, he should proceed after due atonement. If a monk or a nun perceive in their way transports of corn, wagons, cars, a friendly or hostile army, some encamped troops, they should, in case there be a byway, circumspectly choose it and not walk on street. One trooper might say to another, O long-lived one, this Shraman is a spy upon the army. Take hold of him with your arm and drag him hither. The other might take hold of the mendicant with his arms and drag him on. He should neither be glad nor sorry for it. Then he may circumspectly wander from village to village. Censure of taking a difficult path. Sutra 160. An itinerant bhikshu or bhikshuni should not clean the slime or mud sticking to his feet by cutting or trampling or crushing green grass or leaves. Neither should he take a wrong path and harm vegetation, thinking that the slime and mud sticking to his feet will be removed automatically. An ascetic doing so is resorting to deception. He should not do so. He should select in advance a path having no vegetation. After that, he may resume his itinerant way, taking due care. If on his road travelers meet him and say, "O long lived Shraman, how large is this village or Scot-free town? How many horses, elephants, beggars, mean men dwell in it? Is there much food, water, population, corn? Is there little food, water, population, corn?" He should not answer such questions if asked, nor ask them himself. This is the whole duty. Thus I say. Shudra 161. An itinerant bhikshu or bhikshuni should find if there are furrows, moats, canals, forts, city gates, bowls, bolt holes, ditches, caves, or subterranean paths. If it is so, he should not take such direct but difficult path when an alternative path is available. The omniscient has said that such faulty path is cause of bondage of karma. This is because while walking on such path, bhikshu or bhikshuni may slip or stumble and fall. On stumbling, he may hurt some part of his body. He may have to hold to or lean on trees, bunch of leaves, bushes, creepers, grass, or hollow of tree to help him move. He may have to seek and hold hands of travelers passing that way to help him move. For these reasons, an ascetic should select alternative and safe path. Shudra 162. An itinerant bhikshu or bhikshuni should find if there are heaps of grains such as barley and wheat, bullock carts or chariots, or variety of camps of friendly or hostile armies. If it is so, he should not take such direct but difficult path when an alternative path is available. Sutra 163. This is because it is possible that on seeing an ascetic, one soldier may tell to another, "Long lived man, this Shraman is spying upon our army. Hold him by his arms and drag him here." In case it so happens that he is held by arms and dragged, the ascetic should neither be happy nor dejected. He should tolerate the affliction with equanimity and resume his itinerant way, taking due care. Sutra 164. If an itinerant bhikshu or bhikshuni is approached by travelers on the way and asked, "Long lived Shraman, how large and of what type is this village or city? How many horses, elephants, and beggars are there, and what is its population? Is there plenty of food, water, people, and grains in this village or city? Is there scarce food, water, people, and grains in this village or city?" When asked such questions, the ascetic should neither answer such questions nor otherwise talk with those travelers on such topics. Instead, he should continue his wandering silently. This is the totality of conduct, including that related to knowledge, for that bhikshu or bhikshuni. So I say. These aphorisms contain information to warn an ascetic about difficult path during his wanderings. If he can find an alternative and safe path, he is advised not to proceed on the difficult path. The commentator Vritti has interpreted aphorism 161, giving alternatives that if it becomes inevitable to take a difficult path, an ascetic stumbles, he may hold a tree or a creeper to help him cross the path if he is a Stavir Kalpi. In case he is a Janakalpi ascetic, he may seek help from a passing traveler and hold his hand to cross over. But Acharya Sri Atmaramji maintains that taking such difficult paths is clearly prescribed and ascetics are not allowed to take any help whatsoever. Technical word terms: Vapani, raised land or furrows in a farm; Falihani, moats or canals dug around a city; Pagarani, forts; Thoranani, city gates; Dairo, caves or subterranean paths; Guchani, bunch of flowers or fruits; Gumani, bushes; Gahanani, dense thickets or hollow of tree; Padipahiya, a passerby approaching from the front; Abhicharyan, the act of spying; agahashaha pull or drag.
यदक्षरपदभ्रष्टं मात्राहीनं च यद्भवेत् तत्सर्वं क्षम्यतां देव महावीर नमोऽस्तु ते।
Jaina Agama Gyan. Anga Agamas. Acharanga Agama.
इमेण चैव जुज्जाहि किं ते जुज्झेण वज्झो जुद्धारिहं खलु दुर्लभं यहेत्त कुशलेहिं परिन्नाविवेगे भासिये।
Acharanga Sutra. Acharanga Agama Sastra, Book 2, third lecture. Walking. Area. The movement. Sudharma, one of the 11 chief disciples, Ganadhara of Mahavira, compiled Acharanga Sutra Book 1. Some are in the opinion of Acharanga Sutra Book 2 is scripted by a Sthavar. Third lesson. A monk or a nun on the pilgrimage in whose way there are walls or ditches or ramparts or gates hill houses, palaces, underground houses, houses in trees, mountain caves, a sacred tree or a pillar, workshops, should not look at them holding up their arms, pointing at them with their fingers, bowing up and down. Then they may circumspectly wander from village to village. Censure of looking around. Sutra 165. While walking on the way, if a bhikshu or bhikshuni come across furrows in a farm, ditches, caves, subterranean or mountain dwellings, mansions, cellars, tree houses, cavern, temple under a tree, stupa like temples, smithy or other workshops, temple and other abodes, he should not look upon or peep at them, raising his arms, pointing with fingers or bowing up and down. Instead, he should continue his itinerant way, taking due course. A monk or a nun on the pilgrimage, on whose way there are marshes, pastures, grounds, moats, fortified places, thickets, strongholds in thickets, woods, mountains, strongholds on mountains, caves, tanks, lakes, rivers, ponds, lotus ponds, long winding ponds, water sheets, rows of water sheets, should not look at them holding up their arms. The Kavalin says this is the reason. The deer, cattle, birds, snakes, animals living in water, on land, in the air, might be disturbed or frightened and strive to get to a fold or refuse. The Shraman will harm him. Hence it has been said to the mendicant that he should not look at the objects holding up his arms. Sutra 166. While walking on the way, if a bhikshu or bhikshuni comes across furrows near a river, barns, houses, river island, arid forest, dense forest, difficult mountains, formidable heights, on mountains, well, pond, lake, rivers, pools, streams, long pools, deep and oblong water tanks, and other types of water bodies, he should not look or peep at them, raising his arm, pointing with fingers, or bowing up and down. The omniscient has said that that is a cause of bondage of karmas. This is because by doing so, various beings such as deer, animals, birds, snakes, lions, and other reptiles, animals, and birds dwelling there will be disturbed and would seek hiding places. Also, others living there will become apprehensive that this ascetic is trying to displace them. Therefore, Tirthankaras and other sages have said that an ascetic should not look around raising his hands. Instead, in the company of Acharya and Upadhyaya, he should continue his itinerant way, taking due care. A monk or a nun wandering from village to village together with the master or teacher should not touch the master's or teacher's hand with their own, but without touching or being touched, they should circumspectly wander from village to village together with the master or teacher. These two aphorisms contain instructions about discipline during wanderings. With every activity of ascetic life, emphasis has been given to disciplines of mind, senses, and body. Ascetics have been advised to exercise complete control over their eyes, fingers, limbs, and other parts of the body while wandering. His attention should be focused on his wanderings on the path. The commentator says discipline of eyes and other parts of the body may give rise to doubts in the minds of the local people that this is a thief or a spy or an impostor. Besides this, animals and other creatures living there will be disturbed and run for another shelter. During this displacement, they might be trapped or killed by hunters. A monk or a nun wandering from village to village together with the master or teacher might be met on the road by travelers and asked, "O long-lived Shramans, who are you? Whence do you come? And where do you go?" The master or teacher may answer and explain, but whilst the master or teacher answers and explains, one should not mix in their conversation. Thus they may wander from village to village with a superior priest. Technical terms: Kudagarani, a secret place or dwellings made on hilltop. Devyani, barns made for stocking grass. Numani, cellars. Vanayani, an area surrounded by river island. Gahanani, arid area. Gahanavidgani, desolate areas in desert used as hiding place for armies. Vanavidgani, an area made difficult by dense growth of trees. Pavayadugani, difficult hilly terrain. Gunjaliyo, long, deep and curving waterways. A monk or a nun wandering from village to village with a superior priest should not touch the superior's hand with their own. Code of modesty with seniors. Sutra 167. While wandering with Acharya and Upadhyaya, a bhikshu or bhikshuni should not touch their hands with his hands, legs with his legs, and bodies with his body. Taking care to avoid insulting them, he should walk with them, observing the discipline of movement. A monk or a nun wandering from village to village with superior priests might be met on the road by travelers and be asked, "O long-lived Shraman, who are you?" He who has the highest rank of them all should answer and explain, but whilst the superior answers and explains, one should not mix in their conversation. Sutra 168. While wandering with Acharya and Upadhyaya, when a bhikshu or a bhikshuni is approached by a traveler and asked, "Long-lived Shraman, who are you? Where from do you come and where will you go?" then the accompanying Acharya and Upadhyaya will provide a general or specific answer. When they are doing so, the ascetic should not intervene. Instead, he should walk with them, observing the discipline of movement as well as protocol of seniority. A monk or a nun wandering from village to village might be met on the road by travelers and be asked, "O long-lived Shramana, did you see somebody on the road? A man, cow, buffalo, cattle, bird, snake, or aquatic animal? Tell us, show us." The mendicant should not tell it, nor show it. He should not comply with their request, but look on silently, or though knowing it, he should say that he did not know. Then he may circumspectly wander from village to village. Procedure of wandering. Sutra 169. While wandering with senior ascetics, a bhikshu or a bhikshuni should not touch their hands with his hands, legs with his legs, and body with his body. Taking care to avoid insulting them, he should wander with them, observing the discipline of movement as well as protocol. He should act in the same manner if asked about bulbs of water plants, roots, barks, leaves, flowers, fruits, seeds, water in the neighborhood, or a kindled fire. Sutra 170. While wandering with senior ascetics, when a bhikshu or bhikshuni is approached by a traveler and asks, "Long-lived Shraman, who are you? Where from do you come and where will you go?" then the senior most ascetic will provide the answer. When they are doing so, the ascetic should not intervene. Instead, he should walk with them, observing the discipline of movement as well as a protocol. Likewise, if asked about transports of corn, wagons, and cars, ignore questions leading to violence. Sutra 171. While wandering from one village to another, when a bhikshu or bhikshuni is approached by a traveler and asked, "Long-lived Shraman, have you seen some man, deer, buffalo, other animal, bird, snake, or other reptile moving on his path? If yes, please tell us where it has gone. Please show us." At this, the ascetic should neither tell them anything nor respond to their request. Instead, he should ignore them silently. Even if he knows he should not say so, but resume his wandering with due care. Likewise, if asked, "O long-lived Shraman, how large is this village or scot-free town?" Sutra 172. While wandering from one village to another, when a bhikshu or bhikshuni is approached by a traveler and asks, "Long-lived Shraman, have you seen aquatic bulbous roots, stalks or bark, leaves, flowers, fruits, seeds, other plants, stored drinking water, other nearby sources of water, or non-kindled fire on the path? If yes, please tell us and show where it is." At this, the ascetic should not show them anything but remain silent. He should resume his wandering with due care. Likewise, if asked, "O long-lived Shraman, how far is it to that village or scot-free town?" Sutra 173. While wandering from one village to another, when a bhikshu or bhikshuni is approached by a traveler and asked, "Long-lived Shraman, have you seen heaps of wheat, barley, and other grains, and army camps on this path? If yes, please tell us." At this, the ascetic should ignore them silently and resume his wandering with due care. If a monk or a nun, wandering from village to village, sees a vicious cow coming towards them, they should not, from fear of them, leave the road or go into another road, nor enter a thickest wood or stronghold, nor climb a tree, nor take a plunge in a large and extended water sheet, nor desire a fold or any other place of refuge, or an army or a caravan, but undisturbed, the mind not directed to untoward things. They should collect themselves for contemplation. Thus they may circumspectly wander from village to village. Sutra 174. While wandering from one village to another, when a bhikshu or bhikshuni is approached by a traveler and asks, "Long-lived Shraman, how large and what type of village or city is this?" or other such questions, at this the ascetic should ignore them silently and resume his wandering. If the road of a monk or a nun on the pilgrimage lies through a forest in which, as they know, there stroll bands of many thieves desirous of their prosperity, they should not, for fear of them, leave the road. Sutra 175. While wandering from one village to another, when a bhikshu or bhikshuni is approached by a traveler and asks, "Long-lived Shraman, how far is the village or city from this place, or how much distance remains to be covered to reach the village or city?" At this, the ascetic should ignore them silently and resume his wandering. If these thieves say, "O long-lived Shraman, bring us your clothes," give them, put them down, the mendicant should not give or put them down. Nor should he reclaim by imploring or by folding his hands or by moving their compassion, but by religious exhortation or by remaining silent. Elaboration. In Aphorisms 171 and 172, it is advised that the ascetic should not reply to any questions regarding animals and birds or plants, water and fire. This is because in all probabilities the person who is asking such questions is a hunter, butcher, bird catcher, or bandit. If the ascetic provides him information, he may go in that direction. He may trap or kill the being. In such violent act, the ascetic who observes the great O of Ahimsa also becomes instrumental in the other aphorisms or questions generally asked by people who are indisciplined, hungry, or oppressed by cold. They may also cause harm or destruction of beings. Therefore, to both types of questions, he should not say that he knows the answer. He should remain silent irrespective of being aware or not aware of the information sought. In such predicament, a Jinakalpi ascetic remains silent even at the cost of his life. However, in case of a Sthavir Kalpi ascetic, two opinions prevail. First is that an ascetic should refrain from using words that may lead to harm to beings. But at the same time, the ascetic observing the great O of truth should also never utter a lie. Thus, even when he knows, he should not say that he knows. This can be done only if he remains silent. Acharya Sri Atmaramji confirms to this view, and in his support he quotes from the Balava Bhoth by Upadhyaya Sri Parvasha Chandraji. The second opinion is by the author of Vritti, giving greater importance to the feeling of clemency for all beings. He says, under such critical conditions, even if an ascetic knows, he should say that he does not know. Let Acharya Sri Jawaharlal Ji has supported this view of commentator Vritti in his famous work Sadharma Mandam, stating that here the intention of the ascetic is not to tell a lie but to save beings. Acharya Sri Atmaramji clearly mentions that even when he knows, he should not say that he knows, and he should also not tell a lie. So he should remain silent. No fear of fierce animals. Sutra 176. While wandering from one village to another, when a bhikshu or bhikshuni is faced with approaching mad bull, snake, leopard, and other fierce animals, he should not be frightened. Out of fear, he should not take to a wrong path, not leave one path and take to another, not enter into deep forest or other intractable place, not climb a tree or enter a deep and large water body. He should also not seek shelter behind a fence or with an army for his security. Instead, he should be free of any attachment for his body, disassociate his mind from his body, and remain firm in his meditation. Discipline of speech and fearlessness. Avoid answers that lead to violence. While passing through a jungle, an ascetic may happen to see lion, tiger, elephant, cow, deer, rabbit, jackal, and other animals moving about. If some chasing bandits or hunters ask the ascetic Shraman, "Did you see some lion, cow passing this way? If yes, tell me which direction they have taken." The ascetic should not answer such question. He should remain silent boldly. Be courageous. While passing through a jungle, if thieves or bandits gather and ask, "What is this you have?" give all your belongings, otherwise we will snatch them from you. In such situation, the ascetic should place his belongings on one side and stand silent. He should not feel afraid or humiliated. If he gets an opportunity, he may give them a sermon. He should also avoid making a complaint against the thieves when he reaches a city. If the thieves resolving to do it themselves bully him, tear off his clothes, he should not lodge an information in the village or at the king's palace, nor should he go to a layman and say, "O long-lived soldiers, these thieves resolving to do themselves have bullied me. They have torn off my clothes." He should neither think so nor speak so, but undisturbed. This is the whole duty, thus I say. No fear of bandits. Sutra 177. While wandering from one village to another, when a bhikshu or bhikshuni approaches the edge of some desolate area, that can be crossed in many days, he should know in advance that in such areas many bandits come to snatch away ascetic equipment. If it so happens that a group of bandits approach the ascetic out of fear, he should not take to a wrong path and should also not seek shelter behind a fence. Instead, he should be free of any attachment for his body and equipment, disassociate his mind from his body, and remain firm in his meditation. Sutra 178. While wandering from one village to another, when a bhikshu or bhikshuni is approached by bandits and asked, "Long-lived Shraman, give these clothes, pots, blankets, and ascetic broom to us, or put these on the ground," at this the ascetic should not give his equipment to the bandits. Instead, he should place them on the ground. He should refrain from praising, joining his palms, and requesting the bandits to give back his equipment. If he wants to get them back, he should first show them the religious path, otherwise remain silent. Sutra 179. If the bandits, as is normal for them, abuse and manhandle the ascetic or try to kill him or tear apart his dress and throw it away, the ascetic should not go into the village and report to the villagers. He should neither lodge a complaint to the king nor go and tell some householder, "Long-lived householder, those bandits have beaten me and deprived me of my belongings, or damaged my equipment and thrown them away." An ascetic should neither have such thoughts nor utter them. Being free of attachment, he should compose himself and move about. This is the totality of conduct of including that related to knowledge for that bhikshu and bhikshuni. So I say, these 6 aphorisms detail the disturbances faced on the path. In ancient times, the followers or devotees generally remained unaware of the itinerary of an ascetic due to paucity of the means of transportation and communication. The wanderings of ascetics were extremely rigorous and painful. There was a continued fear of ferocious animals and bandits on the way. There are large, desolate, and fearsome areas to cross. Such difficult conditions were perfect tests for an ascetic courage and detachment. If on the way the bandits deprive him of his belongings or beat him, he should be free of any feelings of revenge. He should neither beg his things back nor lodge a complaint. He should tolerate this affliction peacefully and remain composed. Brihat Kalpa Sutra Bhashya, Nishit Churni, and other texts inform that Shramans had to face such afflictions frequently. Uncivilized thieves sometimes killed some acharya or his disciples, kidnapped ascetics, and destroyed their belongings. Faced with such predicament, some aging ascetic would become the leader and the acharya would dress as ordinary ascetic. It also happened that some thieves would return the dresses sometimes during the day and others throw the dresses at the place where ascetics defecate and disappear. End of the third lecture called Walking.
यदक्षरपदभ्रष्टं मात्राहीनं च यद्भवेत् तत्सर्वं क्षम्यतां देव महावीर नमोऽस्तु ते।